So let's go ahead and work on number 6 here, one of the no power ones. Now, I've been recording these ones off and on over the span of a couple weeks now, I believe, just because all sorts of parts I've had to order and had arrive, and things like the headphone jacks, they were out of stock everywhere for a while, so those just came in. I had to test this on a different one, so I actually had to remove this one from here and had to wait for these to arrive so I could get that one on there. So it's just been nonstop excitement with these, but I'm actually kind of having fun with this. So number 6 with no power. Now there are some common causes of the Game Boy Advance not having power. One of them is the battery terminals. When those are dirty, then there's a good chance that they don't get enough power in there. Then the next thing, F1 right here, that's a fuse. Those can go bad, and that will prevent power from getting from the battery to the power switch. And then the power switch can go bad. Then when you flip it over, also seen the transformers go bad. So we're going to start with continuity test on here. So go to the little speaker thing if you have one like this and hit mode. So you have the little sound icon up there. Then we'll just put black on the positive terminal. Make sure the power switch is off, and it should be this first one closest to the power switch. Okay, so since we're getting that beep there, then that at least means the fuse is good. Power is getting to the power switch. So we'll go ahead and continue on. The rest of them should have no signal. And then when we turn the power on, the second and third ones, along with the first one, should have a signal. Okay, so we're not getting the signal with any of the other ones. So what we'll do is go ahead and swap this. We have board 2 right here. This is one of the ones with the sound issues. Just to do a sanity check here. Put that on the positive. And the first one reads. The rest do not. We turn the power on. We have the first. Then we had the second. And we had the third. And then the fourth one is nothing. Okay, so when there's a good one of these, when the power is on, the first 3 legs on it are going to have a signal going through them with a continuity test. So the fun part is I don't have any spare power toggles for these, but what we'll do, it takes desoldering on both sides of that, and then we can pop the top off and take a look inside. May just need to be cleaned. So what we're going to do, since there's a resistor on this side I don't want to accidentally knock off of there, we're going to use desoldering wick and try to get this side cleaned up a bit and then get it so we can pop it off. So we get that all aligned on there. Let it soak up some solder. There we go. That should be good. And we'll use our pliers to get this side popped out now. Okay, there we go. Just kind of lift it up a little bit. Not worry about desoldering the other side. And then we will lift the power toggle out of there. So this is how the power toggles work on this. Also the DS lights and other ones that had these, they're kind of the same. They have 2 flimsy pieces of metal on each side, which is what makes contact inside here to tell it what power state the system's in. So it looks like this pad on the first one here, where the power actually comes in, is kind of corroded on there. So we're going to see if we can get this cleaned up a bit. See if we can bring back the shine to it. And to start the process, we'll use my favorite 91% isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. So Q-tip's a little too big to get in there. That's what she said, and did get a little bit cleaned up, but gonna grab some of the precision cleaning tools here. Then we have our little cleaning brush here. Almost looks like a toothbrush, but it has wiry bristles on that side, but we'll use this one. Just make sure to get the gums and the roof of the mouth and everything too. Then there's this little weird thing, I don't even know what it's called, but it has like a little soft, almost like a Q-tip type tip at the end. So I had to get this little part cleaned up too. You have to be careful when you're cleaning this one because that little metal part will easily pop out of place. But it does have little tabs that you can get it hooked back into place. Just takes a bunch of patience to do. Okay, I will get this put back in here. Then move this back over. And then I'll put a little dab of solder to hold this side in place. Okay, so we are going to test this again. When the power is off, just get the beep at one spot, and now when it's on, Okay, we got beeps on all 3 of those. So now to put this beast in a shell and see what happens. Okay, and I'll flip the power switch. There, that might be the easiest. It'll be upside down for you, but let's see what happens. Okay, that looks like we have something. Let me flip that around. Do we have any volume? We do not have volume. Now, number 6 was a bit of a jerk here with a decent amount of corrosion down here. It actually damaged the pads on this, so I had to do a little bit of rebuilding using copper tape and a little bit of extra solder. But then the connection to the resistor over here to R14 wasn't quite working well enough. So I ended up running the ground wire from leg number 1 all the way up here to a ground spot just so it gets grounded out. So now there we go, and I will hold the microphone up to this so you can hear it on here. You have the sound through there. And then it actually does shut off all the way now. So now to get this one looking all pretty. Now on this channel we've already done just a regular setup on here of changing out a regular shell for a Game Boy Advance, so not really going to show that part on here, but there we go. There is number 6. It is complete. I'm going to put some batteries in here and run it through some quick tests. So we'll start with Motocross Madness. It comes right up and has volume and everything. And the volume can be turned down all the way or turned up all the way. Then we'll put in a Game Boy game. My trusty reshelled Lock and Chase. I've told this at a weird angle because how reflective that game is. There we go, just got the game out of the scene there. So all those buttons are working. That one works. That one works. Okay. So we are good for this one. We can call this one done. Let's take a look at number 5 here, one of the no sound ones. So this speaker actually looks brand new. Looks like someone soldered one on, so I'm guessing this has to do with another issue that Game Boy Advance was pretty well known for. So we're gonna check something out on here. So I just put this one all back together, have the volume up, turning it on. We have no noise in there. So you have no noise, try a headset. So I have it hooked up to this headset. Let me see if I can get sound to the mic. So if you can hear that in there, then this was an issue that happened frequently to the Game Boy Advance. So since the headphones work and the speaker does not, what we'll do is give the headphone jack a nice cleaning and see if that gets something knocked loose in there. Because a lot of times these can get corrosion in them, or even there's a little spot that is supposed to sense when a headphone's plugged into it that can get stuck, and that will cause it so you get sound through here but not through the speaker. So we're going to start with our little scrubbing of this, see if we get anything knocked loose from in there. We'll use our soft little scrubby, blast anything extra out with our can of air, then we'll hook this back up and see if that took care of the issue. Okay, so that doesn't seem to have made any difference. Since the new headphone jacks arrived, I went ahead and replaced the one on here. So I'll get it all hooked up and we'll see what happens. Well, that's interesting. Oh, I don't know what's going on with the video there, but I will try a different game, but the whole volume adjuster and everything works fine. The volume sounds good. This is one of the fake Pokemon crystals, so let me actually grab a real game and test it. Okay, we are going to test with Super Mario Advance 2. Hey, we have a screen on there. And sound. Just make sure all the buttons and everything work. All those seem to work. Shoulder buttons work. Oh, wasn't paying attention to that. Okay, so we have moving left, right, we have down, he looks up. Jump works. He runs with B. Spin jump is good. The camera moving works. And start and select work. Then we'll plug in a headset. I have the headset next to the mic, so hopefully it's picking up the sound from that. Okay, so all that stuff works on there. And then just in case it's some weird thing with the Game Boy reading, we have Tetris 2, a real copy of it we're putting in here. Okay, looks like everything works fine with that. So there's a chance, since the other fake Pokemon game is a fake one, maybe it's already going bad. So that number 5 with no sound is working. So I'm going to get it cleaned up a little bit, just with Q-tip and isopropyl alcohol, some of these buttons and all that. And then we'll move on to getting it all shelled up and everything. So with our trusty number 5, what we are doing, we have a nice display and screen to install on there. We have a nice new shell to go with that screen, USB-C rechargeable batteries, and then the battery cover that matches this that goes with the USB-C, and Game Boy DMG colored buttons. Now to cover warranties and everything, you always need to test the screens out before you install them. So what we'll do is take this ribbon part out, and this is one of the smaller ribbons, so we'll hook the smaller one into there. We'll go ahead and get the ribbon cable in there. Now it is recommended any of these ones that have both of these ribbon cables on here. The one you are not using, wrap it up in captain's tape. There you go, that's just to make sure there's no way it's able to short anything out. So I got the power supply ready, just seating the display into here. Then we put our game in here. Now Game Boy Advance usually between 3.0 and 3.3 volts. So we just have ours set at 3.3. And plug in the negative, plug in the positive, and let's see what happens. Big money, no whammies. Hey, there's a display. And then we have to let that set for a little bit just to make sure there are no dead pixels or anything that appear. And then everything's looking good with that, so we're going to go ahead and shut it off and start some soldering. We'll go ahead and just move the display from there, but we can leave this part connected. So just pop up the brown part again, then remove that and set it somewhere safe. Now the instructions say that this part is optional. You don't actually need to set it up, but there's these 3 options here. You have the LR and select. You just want to solder a wire to each of those if you want to do this optional step. The menu is still accessible through the little tap screen, but this just makes it accessible a second way too. Just get a little bit of solder on each of these. Then we'll take the wires and get them soldered in going that direction away from everything. So we have our L button ready, and the R button, and select. Then we want to flip the board over, because each of the wires connects in on this side of the board. Then we will go ahead and pre-tin some of these, so TP9 is where the L is going to go. TP8 is where the R goes. And then TP2 is where select goes. So then we'll take each of the wires, the L, we just get set into TP9, then R to TP8, and then because we use the smaller ribbon on here, I just kind of folded that under, just make sure we can get the select cable down to TP2. Now we will get those positioned a bit better with captain's tape as we're getting this installed, but go ahead and put this to the side somewhere safe. And then grab the front of the new shell. Now with these funny playing screens, they do require a specific type of shell. You can cut out the innards of a regular shell, but it's a pretty tough process, and there's a chance that not everything will be cut out correctly and things will be messed up. But there's a comparison of the openings for the displays and screens on each of these. So we will take the display and get it set in here carefully and make sure it's flush and everything. So that looks good. That's how it will look from the front. There's actually a cover over this that'll be removed in the end, but keeping it on right now in case something tries to get on the screen, like fingerprints. Now these shells do have this extra little piece of plastic up here that needs to be popped on out of there. And grab my plastic clips, get both sides of it, and then it's out. Then we'll take our new buttons and get them in place. Also, always make sure to figure out where the diffuser is. So in these shells, the diffuser is in the bag of screws. You want to make sure to get that in place. Then we'll put in our little silicone pads in here. So then before bringing the rest of the board down on there, you have the little mounting bracket. And the mounting bracket, you just want to kind of move this down, get it positioned around everything there, and then bring the board on down like this, so you can get the cable hooked into place. We're actually removing the start and select button for now, but lift up the bracket a little bit, and then remove the double-sided tape from here. Then with that removed, you kind of curve this on down. That's our touch sensor. It will be applied down here to this black part. But it'd be good to get the ribbon cable connected in just so you are sure you have it in the right spot. There we go. We have that connected, and then we have our touch sensor in place. Then with everything right there, what we will do is, okay, then before putting this back down, we use some captain's tape to hold everything in place. Then put the start and select buttons back in there. And then the cables on the top now, just going to use a little bit of captain's tape to get those in place too. Then flip the board over and put it into place. So lift up on this side just a bit and fold the other cable down underneath that's not being used. Then the nice new case screws that you got, put one in this little circle area, and then put one in the circle area. Then we attach all the other items like the side pieces, the power toggle, and the L and R buttons. Then with all those in place, you can put the back shell back on. Then sadly, the rest of the screws for this shell are tri-point, but we will go ahead and grin and bear it and put them all in. Then our last Phillips screw goes right down here. Then the final part of this is getting the rechargeable USB-C battery in place. Now to make this mod fit correctly, we're going to have to remove the connectors on this side. Those can be a pain sometimes, but usually just kind of lift up and pull that plastic out a little bit and pry it on out of there. And then it's always good keeping those for future use. So then you take this with the sides with the battery parts and then push that down into place. Then the sad part about this part where it has the instructions, you actually have like a little cooling piece of copper, a heat sink, that goes right on top of that. So then you can't see the instructions anymore. Then get the wire plugged in. It goes over the top and then gets pushed down. Now try to push it down to the point where it's flush with everything in here, and then get the cover put on. And there we go. We have the back on there. Battery should have a little charge to it, so let's see what happens. Okay, that turns on, so now for the fun part. So everything's looking good on there, it's sounding good. If you tap down here, you actually bring up the menu, you can change brightness on there. It's a quick tap is a change the number, and then a long tap changes what category it's on. And we have our favorite number 4, the EU board. So this one pretty much just become a parts board. I've taken a few pieces off of it to test out. One of the pieces I took off actually broke when I was taking it off because how corroded it was. So this is missing one of the legs. These parts are really hard to come by. I'm actually waiting on a few more to come in stock. Because we have all these ones, we've tried fixing these ones. They don't quite work right though. We have soaked them in vinegar and then cleaned them out using isopropyl alcohol, and then used deoxit to get any remaining parts cleaned up from them, but they're still not quite working right. So if anyone knows the trick of bending those back in place, then let me know in the comments. Because when these parts are in stock, they're usually about like $12 to $14. So if I get those other ones fixed, that would definitely save a bunch of money on this. But if you notice the trend, just kind of decided an order to do. I do 6, 5, and then 4 for this video, and then 3, 2, and 1 will be the next video. But as I was editing, I realized a couple things that I may have left out of board 6 and 5, so I'm going to cover those really fast. So this little hack here on the screen, that has to do with the bad connection from this leg of the potentiometer to R14, which on EU that actually connects correctly. But when it doesn't connect, then you have the grounding issue there where you're not going to have any sound. One of the parts that I missed talking about with that, so that resistor is rated at, it's the R14, 4.7K ohms. So there are times when components are grounded out, you have a neutral ground resistor in place. And that will actually protect components like transformers, even LEDs, just other things like that from having any excess current flow through them. So that exact hack there, the way it was shown in the video, the thing I'd recommend that I did not show for number 6, you can get little resistors like this and just attach them along the line. So when you're grounding it out, just to not wear down on other components, then make sure that you still have a resistor for that charge to go through. And then for video number 5, one thing that I realized, I actually did not record this part, but it's the capacitor there, C59, which on the U board was right there. I realized that there's one that was not a standard one that was in place on there. So I did end up taking the one from the U board right over here and putting it on that board. But other than that, the other 3 boards are still waiting on a few parts to come into stock so I can order them, unless we can get these restored. But so far in these videos, that's 2 out of 3 of them are restored. One of them just ended up being a parts board. So if you're enjoying this, then let me know in the comments. Also leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. And stay tuned in the future for the 3rd final video for these, where it will have boards 1 through 3. I want to thank you for watching. Have a nice day.